Hey, what's going on, everyone? Welcome to another episode of the Great Black Speakers Podcast. My name is Lawrence Watkins, and I'm your host today, and we help you connect through conversation. Of course, I am the founder and CEO of Great Black Speakers, and also the president and chief operating officer of the Black Business School. Today, we're connecting you with Mr. Ace Chapman, and we met randomly about a week and a half ago, or maybe even less than that. And we'll discuss that a little bit later. But Ace is in private equity, and he helps people buy and sell internet businesses, and he has a pretty large portfolio on his own that he's going to share more about you or more with you here in 1 second. Ace, how are you doing today, man?
I'm great. That random happenstance that we happen to connect, and I'm really excited that it led to us connecting here today.
Yeah, it was very interesting because we were just sitting out in front of the Hard Rock Cafe in Medellin, Colombia. And my good friend Darns Constant down there, you guys have heard me talk about Darns before. He said, "Hey, don't I know you?" And he was talking to you, Ace, and you said, "No, I don't know." But then he said, "Yeah, I interview you for my podcast." And then we all got to talking, and then I found out that you do private equity and you help people buy and sell companies, and you buy a lot of companies yourself. And I
Mhm.
thought that would be a very interesting topic for our Black Financial Channel and the Your Black World channel, and as well as the students within the Black Business School. So I really want to know more about that. But first, before we get into that, can you tell the audience a little bit in terms of how you got to your current position, in terms of internet private equity and what you currently do?
Yeah, it started 20 years ago this coming May. I was 19 years old. I was studying political science in New York at a school called Colgate. And wasn't planning on going into business or anything, even though my whole life I'd had a little bit of entrepreneurial bent. I felt like becoming an attorney was a easier or a more secure path. But I kind of to express my business side, I was using this stock market simulator called Cool Wall Street. And I just was frustrated by the people that were running it because they were terrible at customer service. The site was always crashing. Everybody was always complaining that they didn't get responses from people. And this is back in '99, like the internet was kind of a new thing. I was just excited about the business that they were building. And, I knew that it was a younger guy that had started it. And so I reached out to him and just said, hey, would you be interested in having an intern, some free labor this summer? And, I'd love to learn about what you're up to and help out because obviously you guys need help. And he wrote back and basically said, the reason, we're not working on this much is because I've moved on to another project that's just it's growing a lot faster. And I want to sell this. And, I'm a 19-year-old kid. I saved up about $3,000 that I had in my savings. So I definitely didn't consider me being able to buy it. But I was really curious. I'm like, man, I wonder how much money they're making. I wonder how much they want to sell it for. And so I asked them, well, tell me some of the numbers. Maybe I'll come across somebody that wants to buy it. Me fully feeling like that was a stretch. But he sent me the numbers. It was making about 60,000 and they wanted 70,000 for it. And I had no idea how to do evaluation, but I had a simple comparable. And it was the fact that the university I was at was charging 30 grand a year. And a lot of my friends that I knew that were graduating were happy to be getting jobs making 30, 40,000. So using that as my comp, I'm like, okay, 120,000 to get a $30,000 a year return, which is really just a job compared to paying 70,000 for 60. This sounds like a good comp. So I went about after kind of sleeping on it. And it's one of those things where you have an idea or you want something, you're trying to figure out, okay, how can I get this? I have $30,000. They want 70. I knew nothing about financing or anything like that. But I went back to them. They were willing to sell or finance half of it. And that left me with $32,000 more to come up with, which, for a 19-year-old broke college kid, it might as well have been $1 billion. But I had a buddy who did come from some money, told him what was going on. He was like, man, I'll put in 15,000. So now I have about 17,000 more to come up with. And I'm walking on campus, and you probably will remember this back in the day, Lawrence, but back in the day, it was not a rare thing to have all these credit card companies that would set up tables and basically prey on poor college kids, convincing us to take out all this credit in exchange for t-shirts, pretty much is what they would give us, little t-shirts and that kind of thing. So I'm kind of going by, start talking to one of the guys. I'm like, all right, so with this credit card, can I just like get some cash? And he tells me how to do that. And I end up with 3 credit cards to come up with the rest of that 17,000. So that was how I pulled together the down payment. And, it's funny, I was talking to somebody just a couple of weeks ago, and they were like, man, you're 19 and, you're buying this company. You had to be nervous that this thing wasn't going to work out. And it's funny, I should have been really nervous about that. But the thing that I was most nervous about was that one of those credit card companies would send a statement to my house instead of to the dorm. And so every month I'm calling like, make sure do not send this to my home address, because my parents would have definitely flown to New York and killed me.
Yeah, so I'm glad that you avoided death by parents.
Yes.
Yeah, so they would have killed you. So let's talk about that a little bit. Did you grow up in an entrepreneurial household, or how did your parents think of entrepreneurship as you were young?
When I was younger, my dad was a pastor. And he was in ministry, and so that was the focus of our childhood. When we were young, it was about being in church. We didn't have time to do a lot of side hustles and all that, because Sunday, Wednesday night, Saturday community service. We were pretty well packed. And then I did something called Bible quizzing that we did, during the week as well. So it wasn't a big focus, but at the same time, they were always supportive. And, especially once the business grew beyond the point of me being able to run it from my dorm room. And it's interesting. I just flew my mom up to New York, and we got to spend some time in the city. And we were hanging out with some business partners of mine. They were like, man, you had to be nervous when your son came to you and said, hey, I'm going to quit college and run this thing on the internet, when this is, now we've got a lot of these stories. We have the Mark Zuckerberg, but 1999, we didn't have those stories. It was a lot more of really jumping out on faith and hoping that things were going to work out. And it's funny, I hadn't really talked to them about it, but they were always showed a strong face to me, like, oh yeah, we have faith in you, da, da, da. And when we were in New York, she was telling my friends, like, the conversations that we had, behind closed doors, like we wanted him to feel like we were totally behind him, but behind closed doors, we're like, if this doesn't work in a year, we got to get him back in college and, back on the straight and narrow.
Yeah, no, that's interesting, because my family had those exact same conversations, because I started my first business when I was, 22, 23 years old. I had just finished up engineering school at the University of Louisville. And my parents thought I was going to go get some corporate job at, a bank or a General Electric type of company. But then, I just surprised them and said, I'm moving up to New York to work with my older brother. And we call him Coco. Of course, you guys know him as Dr. Boyce Watkins, but I'm moving up to New York to work with Coco. Something we don't even know what we're going to do yet, but we're going to do something big and something great. And they freaked out. And, it's funny because they never really showed me in front of my face that they were freaking out, but behind closed doors, they were, talking to Boyce and saying, hey, you're about to ruin your brother's life, and had my other mentors, talk to him as well. And, he's a grown man. He can do what he wants to do, that type of thing. But it's funny how, you can have a supportive parent at the same time. Their concern for you is so great that it might keep you and hinder you from opportunities. So it takes a lot of courage on their behalf just to let you go and let you do, what it is that, your dreams, desire.
Yeah, I look back and I'm like, thank goodness that the support was there. But I even think about that, like, if it were my kid, would I say, leave this? And it was a big deal. I was at a top 20 university. I had a full ride. So it was a big deal, but they were supportive.
Yeah, so that's interesting. So I did not know that you actually left school full time. So after you purchased the company, what happened after that?
So I started giving that love and care to the business that it was missing. And, when I bought it, we had 10,000 people using the platform. And just by kind of letting the people that were using it know, like, okay, I am serious about this business. Now we've got some new people at the helm. We created a referral program, and I closed on the deal about midway through second semester of my sophomore year. It was around February. And by the time May had come, we had doubled it to 20,000. And it made some local papers and that kind of thing. And had some people, I wasn't really even trying to raise capital, but I had some people approach me about investing. And I remember that was how the conversation started. Like, hey, we love what you're up to. We want to invest in this, and we think it can grow to something really huge. And it did end up going to 250,000 users. But at that point, they basically were like, we're not going to invest in this for you to be running it part-time from school. And that started the conversation with my parents, and it was funny. They're just like, what is this thing? Like, why do people want to invest in you? Why do they want to give you money? Are they crazy? You're 19. They must be out of their minds. So that's what was kind of that impetus to initially start as a year break and ended up being me leaving.
Got you. So you left school at age 19. Now, you had this full ride, you left school. How are you feeling? Are you nervous? I mean, I know your parents are nervous, but how are you feeling at this time? Do you feel like you have a lot of pressure on yourself, or is it just, the benefit, or I guess the bliss of not knowing what it is that you're actually doing?
Yeah, I was making money, so that helps. It was a cash flow positive business, and I remember, even before during all of this time, I was telling my dad that I was making money, and he really should be credited for coming up with the concept of Bitcoin, because all summer I'm telling him, like, oh, this month I made about 11,000, and next month was about 12 or 13. And he just never seemed really interested, and I didn't understand why. And so once the people wanted to invest, I went to them saying, I've got people that want to invest. Like, why do they want to invest? It's not even making real money; it's making internet money. And I'm like, Dad, what? Like, when you talk about internet money, there is no internet money. So he just had a concept that I wasn't making real money. And I think back to that, it was really funny because he would always tell me, like, you need to get a job this summer. Like, what are you doing? I'm like, Dad, I made 11 grand. Like, I'm not gonna be able to get a summer job making that. And the reason he was harping on me about that was because he felt like I was making internet money. But it led to him then realizing, oh, people are sending this 19-year-old kid this kind of money. And we were getting checks from DoubleClick, which was acquired by Google but later on. But I would get these checks, and I had one of them with me, and he's like, okay, let me see this check. It's like, it might have been an $8,000 check or something. He's like, this has to be a scam. Like, there's no way that people are sending a 19-year-old black kid $8,000 through the mail. Like, do you know who these people are? Like, who's the CEO? Like, I don't know who the CEO is. It's like you're getting money from a company and you don't know who the CEO. I mean, it sounds so crazy. And I get lots of checks from places I don't know who the CEO is. But, we'd go there. He's like, we got to get to the bank and inform them that you got some kind of, check kiting. Who knows what you've been roped into. So we get down to the bank. It's like, this check has to be fake. Check on this company. We don't know what's going on. And long story short, the bank comes back. It's like, yeah, they're good for the money. It's a $500,000 company, which, he didn't know what it was. But, that was the start of the journey. And, during that period, it's funny, it doesn't have a happy ending. And I think this is something that's important for entrepreneurs to know is like, those ups and downs, it's just you don't see entrepreneurial stories where you start from nothing and then, everything is just hunky-dory on the way up. About 2 years later,
Actually, hold that thought, Ace. You know, we're going to do a quick commercial break.
Cool.
So here with Ace Chapman. Ace does private equity, mainly specializing and focusing on internet businesses, and he's giving his story in regards to how he got started in the industry as a 19-year-old kid, college kid dropout, and things are going really good for him right now. But now he's about to talk about the not so happy side of entrepreneurship, especially at that age. So if you like this video, if you like this topic, please give us the thumbs up button on YouTube. Please make sure that you share this video with your friends and family who may be interested in either buying or selling a company online. And also please make sure that you subscribe to our channel as well. So Ace, now you're making all this money. What happens?
So for some who were around back then, especially in business, you'll remember 2001 is what they kind of termed the internet bubble is bursting. And we hit a bit of a recession, but the people that were the hardest hit were in the internet industries. And so everything that all the people that we really made money from when it came to ads and our platform, a lot of them were being shut down or going out of business. And so the money just was drying up more and more and more over time. And I realized like, hey, we're headed towards having to shut the doors. Now, and it was one of those things that was so quick. Just 7 months before, we had Ameritrade who was interested in buying the platform, and we're like, man, why would we sell right now? Things are growing, everything is going well, which is one of the reasons that today everything I have, if I get a great offer, it is definitely for sale. But we, just ended up closing the doors. So now I am a 21, 22-year-old kid. I, have a little bit of cash. I made a great return overall on the acquisition, but it's nothing. I don't have a degree. I've got to figure out, okay, what is my next thing?
Yeah. So, you're in this position. At this point in life, at 21, 22 years old, are you regretting your decision, or like what's going through your mind, at this point in time?
Yeah, I think anytime you're going through those things, it's a mix of emotions. It's the regret over not having a degree, so I can go out and just get a really great job. It's like, man, I don't have the opportunity to get a job, the kind of job that I could have if I finished school. Regret over not taking the offer, like, we could have had a 7-figure exit. Why didn't I take the offer from Ameritrade? But the really great thing during those times is looking back and going through the decisions that you've made and kind of learning from those. And one of the things that it just never really crossed my mind was that I could duplicate what I had done and just go and find a deal. And so it took a while, just when something fails, it's good to take that time and just sulk and be sad and let all that out. When you're building a company, it can be like a kid. It can be, you have a relationship with it. So letting those employees go and, just losing that vision for where I felt like we could take it. So I had a little bit of time there, and then I decided, hey, I wonder, it was just happenstance that I bought this thing, but I wonder if I could go and take a little bit of money I do have and buy cash flow or buy income again instead of going out and getting a job. And the really interesting thing is I did some consulting for SunTrust. And the main reason I did get that was because of my experience, which was really unique when it came to our financial platform. So that gave me some money as well. And so it's interesting. That was an opportunity that came because of what I learned and the value that I brought through that entrepreneurial journey. And then, so I was able to gather up some cash. I learned a little bit from them about mortgage companies and how that worked, while I was also kind of sharing my knowledge. And so I ended up embarking on the journey to find my next deal, which ended up being a mortgage company.
Got you. So your next deal is a mortgage company. Before we get into that, though, let me ask you in terms of, you keep talking about learning and skills and learning from the previous, your first company. Talk about some of the main things that you learned in terms of skill sets that helped you along as you purchased this mortgage company, or in the mortgage industry for your next act.
Yeah, the very first thing was this concept that I could use some seller financing, and I could negotiate a deal where I could leverage a small amount of money. And at this point, I had a little bit of money, but I could put a small amount at risk in that deal and come up with a deal structure that protects me and my cash while I try to grow that business. And that's exactly what I did with that mortgage company. Was I was able to leverage a small amount of money to still get control of the business. And so that was really the first thing was, wow, the ROI on that $3,000 ended up being absolutely astronomical because I, was able to leverage this big asset with a small amount of money. The second thing was understanding hiring and understanding internet marketing. So in a mortgage company, like your employees are huge, and learning at a young age, how to find people that are going to be great employees, how to, deal with firing folks, just a lot of the headaches around HR. I had to deal with that at a young age. And I was able to, they had a lot of issues with some of the brokers and keeping them motivated and that kind of thing. And so I brought a unique energy there when I took over the business. And the thing that wasn't being done in a big way in that industry, and it's still what I try to look for today, is how can I bring the same concepts and ideas from one industry? Because I've owned everything from tanning salons to mortgage companies to, we're closing a deal right now that's a SaaS business. And, we have a lot of different businesses. And in a lot of those cases, we're taking things that there's some really creative entrepreneurs. Instead of me trying to come up with what are the best ideas, I want to just cross-pollinate those. But the big idea for that acquisition was, let's bring some internet marketing to this mortgage company, which it was doing zero before I acquired it.
So that's interesting. So basically, you're not creating something new, like outright. You're combining just ideas that you have heard or that you have seen from just different industries and applying it to another industry to add value to the base underlying business. Is that correct?
That's it. What I realized was I can have a tremendous amount of upside if I spend a lot more energy in the deal. And because after we closed Cool Wall Street, sold some of the assets for a little bit, what I thought about was, okay, well, I'm going to go start another business. And it was, as I looked at it and compared that to being able to buy one, I'm like, wait a minute. So I've got to, come up with an idea. I've got to hope that it matches with the marketplace and the demands. I've got to start spending money before I make any money. And I've got probably 9 months to a year and a half before I can even break even in the normal business. And so I compared that to my journey of, okay, get a little bit of capital, and it's the day I close on this business, I'm cash flow positive, and then I can take that cash and reinvest into growing it. It's basically skipping those first 2 years of owning a business and trying to find the customers, build the team, create some systems, have all of that stuff in place. And I can do it and start making money as soon as I close the deal. So that was kind of, and then taking some of those ideas and sprinkling those into the company that I bought.
Yeah, so that's interesting. So how did things turn out with the mortgage company that you purchased?
Great. It ended up, little did I know at this point that I left one bubble and joined into another kind of growing bubble. So things are killing it. It's 2002, 2003, 2004. I bought another company that was called Homevestors, And in that company, we were buying and selling about 50 houses a year at that point. It basically is a franchise that's in the real estate side. So it was very complementary. We're doing the deals over here, and then we were, doing the mortgages, and then merged with just a portion of a real estate brokerage. And so 2006 hits, and a guy comes out of the blue and wants to buy my business. Now, it's not really for sale, but I've had that experience of Cool Wall Street where I wanted, I'm like, okay, like I'm at least willing to talk about this. And I ended up exiting those, without any idea of what was coming around the corner. So I certainly kind of lucked out there because I was not an oracle that had any idea of what was going to happen in 2007, 2008. But because of what I learned in 99 and 2000 and 2001, I was, just open and willing to start those negotiations to exit out of that.
Yeah, that's interesting because I think that shows that you can't time the market, right? So, on the first time you lost in terms of, your company because the, tech bubble of 2000, 2001. But then the second time, it just so happened that the timing worked out, great. And then you sold at, approaching the height of the real estate bubble that was happening then. And I think, a key learning lesson for me, just thinking about that, is nothing really changed in terms of your model, in terms of running the business. It got better, but fundamentally, you're still putting in work day in and day out to deliver value and to, I guess, combine the best ideas from different industries to create a new type of product that delivered immense value to your customer base.
Exactly. And so ended up exiting out of that. And that it's funny that I happened to buy those, but there was certainly not a idea that there was a strategy around buying and selling businesses. It was a lot more that it was just like, hey, like I need a job. I need something that's going to generate some income, and it's not going to be starting something from scratch. And so this was the first time, seeing that I bought a company and I exited and grew the company through mergers. That was the first time that I realized, oh, okay, I can, this is something that could be a real strategy of just buying a company, growing it and selling it. So it's funny, it took me 7 to 8 years just to realize that this was my strategy, just because, when we think about owning a business, 99% of the information out there is all about go and take the risk and start a business from scratch. Nobody talks about buying a business. So I had to kind of just stumble in the dark and happen to realize looking back. And that was kind of my lesson there. And so that's when I got really aggressive about this strategy of finding businesses, growing them through acquisitions and kind of leveraging the deal maker skill set and then exiting out of those deals.
Yeah, let's talk about that a little bit more, because I think that you are correct. And when I think about private equity, I have my MBA, and there are quite a few people, with my background or skill set that goes into private equity. You usually think about buying and selling like large industrial companies or shopping complexes or Kohl's or, something, to that side. You think about KKR, you think about Barbarians at the Gate, you think about the 1980s, right? Like those are just the things that come to my mind when I think of private equity in general, right? But I never really thought about private equity in terms of buying and selling internet businesses. And I don't think most people thought about it as well. And also, I never thought about doing it as an individual versus doing it as a huge team of people that's going to buy this multi-billion-dollar asset. So can you give me the real deal as it relates to being in private equity on this, I guess, micro scale or this smaller scale in terms of internet businesses and so forth?
Yeah. And so at this point, I was still buying both offline and internet businesses. But the thing that I love about this micro space is you're able to buy things at a really low multiple. So the average deal that I was closing was at a 2 to 3 multiple. What that means is, if it's generating 100,000 a year, you're going to be able to buy it for 200 to 300,000. Now, one of the things that I realized is if you can put a down payment of 50,000, 100,000 even, but most of the deals I was doing, it was pretty highly leveraged, then your ROI, you can get your cash out of that deal in 3 months, 6 months, especially if you're able to grow the business at all. And now you've got that free to go and do the next deal. And this one continues making money for you. And it's what, when you talk about those larger private equity funds, it's the same thing that they've done. And probably the greatest example has been Berkshire Hathaway, which it just wants to get capital efficient businesses that are generating a ton of cash. And then they're going to take that cash and reinvest it into buying more cash. And that was the shift for me at that point was, we're even as an entrepreneur, what you're doing is you're trading your time for money. You as the entrepreneur have to trade your time for money. And it's a lot more scalable to figure out where can I raise a little bit of money and trade this money. If Warren Buffett had to try to come up with enough ideas to generate the cash that they've generated, it would have never happened. What he's good at is just, all right, I'm going to take this cash and then I'm going to buy more cash. And that was the shift for me, was realizing, all right, instead of me working for income, whether it's as an employee, as a self-employed person, or even as an entrepreneur that's starting a business, it's going to be a lot quicker. I'm going to build a lot more wealth if I can buy things at a low multiple, which means, deals that are under a $5 million kind of watermark. In most cases, you're going to be able to buy at that low multiple range. When you get into competing for those bigger deals, I just don't like having to wait 7-8 years to get all my money back. It's less risky if I can get all my money back in a 2 to 3 year range. And so it's like owning a piece of real estate, but instead of that real estate having a renter that's going to pay it off in 15, 20, 30 years, it's having a piece of real estate that's going to pay itself off in 2 years.
No, I love it. And just, for those people who are tuning in, there are quite a few people, Brother Tolliver and KOG Acquisitions, who are loving the conversation here on YouTube right now. If you all have any questions for Ace, please go ahead and type them in the chat, and I'll try to get to as many of them as I possibly can throughout this interview. And also, if you like what you're hearing from Ace Chapman, who is in internet business private equity, please go ahead and press the thumbs up button on YouTube. Please share this interview with other individuals within your network, and also subscribe to our channel if you would like to see more videos like this in the future. And also, please go ahead and go over and visit theblackbusinessschool.com. Of course, I'm the president and chief operating officer. My brother Boyce is the founder and CEO of that company. And we want to educate you in all things wealth building and business building as well. So, back to our conversation, Ace, I want to now talk about the financing piece before we get into the deal analysis and also deal finding, right? So let's talk about the financing piece, though. What has always been like a myth, I don't even know what to call it. There's something that's kind of been out there. I don't even know, mystifying, I guess, is how do you go about financing these deals, right? So if you're going to buy a house, you have FHA loan programs, you have all these, government loan programs, and just other things too that are out there to help, people who want to buy their own home, and then also investors in terms of, buying up additional real estate. That market is not as transparent when it comes to buying small internet businesses, I don't think. Maybe you can, shed a different light onto it, for me. But when you want to finance these internet business deals, or just these deals in general, because I know you haven't even moved to internet only at this point in your career. But if you think about these deals in general, how does one go about financing if they want to buy a business instead of building one from scratch?
Yeah, the interesting thing is, I think as entrepreneurs, we're so used to capital being a very tough thing to get access to. And it's because we do something that is outrageously risky. If you think about opening up a company, you've got to figure out what's the location going to be. Once I get a location, I've got to spend money on build out. Once I get that, I start hiring employees. Now I'm paying the lease, I'm paying employees. This is just to get everything ready. You've got to get them trained. You got to figure out what are the products that we're going to sell. You start to spend some money on inventory, and eventually you get to the point where you have the grand opening. In order to get people there, you've got to spend some money on marketing. You've got to hope that the messaging, the form of marketing, the platform you choose, all of that lines up. So you've got all of this outlay of cash, and then you open the doors and you pray that somebody wants to come in and spend money. And now you've got the challenge of, we just got to get from zero to break even. And you work on just getting enough customers there just to break even. And then eventually you start making money. At each one of those stages, if there's a mistake with the location or the employee or any of these things, that can mean the demise of not just the business, but all of the capital that was put into that business and all of the time that was put into that business. So anytime you walk into anywhere, whether it's a meeting with an investor, whether it's friends and family you want to raise capital from, or whether it's a bank, they're like, man, you got to be crazy. And I think it's interesting that as entrepreneurs, a lot of times people are able to put aside the reality that the odds are against you. But investors will not put that aside. Even venture capital firms who have tremendous networks, they have everybody who you could dream of in some cases of being able to give you the right ideas and help make a business successful, in addition to their portfolio of other companies that can come in and help. And even in those cases, you have venture capital firms that are the brightest, best backed venture VC funds, and they still have a over 90% failure rate. So you've got to try to beat what they're up to in order to succeed. And so that's what you're up against when you're trying to raise capital. Now, you contrast that to walking into a bank and you've got something like the mortgage company that I bought that's been around for 20 years. You've got something like I bought a series of spas and tanning salons, and the first one had been around for 28 years, been profitable for 18. You've got an internet company. We bought one last year that's been in business since 2008 and has a great history of making money. You bring those things to a bank and they're like, here, come on back. Let's talk. It becomes a totally different conversation. You sit down with an investor and you say, hey, this is the return. This is what this thing is making. Not, I have a dream that one day this thing is going to make some money. It's making money today. As soon as we close on this deal, I'm going to start giving you money back. You're going to get a monthly return, a quarterly return on this. Not, you're going to pray that a year from now we get past that break-even point and we're making money. These are totally different conversations. In our program, we go through 101 different ways to finance a business that is already making money. And none of those are things that are interested in putting into an entrepreneurial venture. So it's a different game, and that's something that a lot of people don't have, are not used to, because as entrepreneurs, we're so used to the toughest thing is, where am I going to get this capital? Because it's literally crazy capital.
Yeah, so let's just talk about a few of those most popular ways in terms of how one will go about financing a company that they want to buy. So you've talked about seller financing. Are there bonds, are there private stock, or what are just some of the general ways that people need to think about if they're going to think about buying a company?
So kind of going through some of the most popular ones. Most popular is obviously SBA. SBA is a great option. It's a lot easier to get those done when the company is making money, because it's a program that's it's targeted towards businesses. And, again, if a bank wants to make those business loans and you've got two people walking in, you've got one person walking in with something that they feel like is the greatest idea ever, and they're hoping to turn into some money. And you've got somebody walking in, it's a boring idea. It's already been done. Lots of people are doing it. but it's been making money for 10 years. As a bank, if you've got to decide between those two, you're going to send your SBA money to those persons. So, we've closed several deals in the last year. Actually, one of the guys that I was meeting with, who's a client in New York, closed a 7-figure deal that was essentially worked out to be no money down the way we structured it. And we did that with SBA. The second thing is getting in financing for a particular part of the business. So we're doing a deal right now that's an internet business. And the first one actually is an internet business, but for the down payment, we're using a platform that allows us to get access to inventory financing. So we're, in the deal, we're financing it through inventory and basically making that down payment, and the rest will be seller financing. Some of the other things that you can do in a deal outside of just seller financing is, turning that into a stock deal where you give the seller a portion of stock, and you can do the same thing by raising capital, which is something, again, I think when you're in the normal world of being an entrepreneur, it's highly discouraged. It's just looked at as a crazy strategy to think you're going to raise capital via stock. But I have people that have never sold anything in their life, and they go through our program, and we end up raising, like I've got a client in Canada that literally has raised more money than he's got more investors. They're like, hey, I really want to invest. And it's a matter of just getting the deal closed. So the money doesn't become the problem. It's just the work of finding and putting together the deal.
Got you. Let's talk about that now. But before we do, just a reminder, everyone, I'm here with Ace Chapman, who is in private equity, I guess micro private equity, if that's even the term. But he buys and sells businesses, usually in the, 7-figure range or so. But he could talk more about, deal sizes and that type of thing. If you like this video, please go ahead and press the thumbs up button on YouTube. Please share this video with your friends, families, and colleagues who may be interested in this topic, and also subscribe to our YouTube channel. Make sure you also go and visit theblackbusinessschool.com. That's theblackbusinessschool.com, where we don't just help you climb the corporate ladder, we help you build one as well. So, one thing, Ace, that you kept talking about is this concept of multiples and buying businesses for 2x or 3x multiple of their revenue, and so on and so forth. And the main question that popped in my head is, why would a company sell their business for 2x or 3x the multiple when you have some of these companies that are out here in the VC space and other spaces that are getting 20x, 30x, or whatever of their revenue multiple? So what makes micro private or private equity like this unique space where a business will want to sell for 2x or 3x their multiple instead of something much larger?
Yeah, of course, most people aren't even thinking about selling. Funny story, I bought, one of my next deals was a tanning salon. And, the person that I bought that from, I actually got it at about a 1x. And the reason was that her husband was moving to Europe for his job. She had to leave. She had to sell. And so I ended up getting an amazing deal, which was one of the reasons I bought that business. Another reason was I found out she had a 14,000 person database of customers that she had done business with in the past. And for, online businesses, we're talking big numbers and databases and that kind of thing. For an offline business in a small town like Chattanooga, Tennessee, to have 14,000 people, that is really incredible. And so I asked her, okay, how often are you emailing or contacting these people? And she's like, I don't like to bother them, so we don't do that. I'm like, okay, that's fine. I understand you don't like to bother them, but like, when was the last time? And she was like, never. Like, so in your 20-year history, you've never contacted them, and wrote up a contract right then and bought that deal. But the reason I bring that up is that, that's one case where we were able to buy it at a 1 multiple because the seller wants to get rid of it because of whatever life kind of issue that comes up. just like with real estate or anything else where you find motivated sellers. The other part of the story, though, was there was a retail shop that was next to us, and it had been in business for about 30 years. And we got a lot of their customers who would, they love shopping there. They would come over and do business with us after on a trip there. And so one day I'm pulling up and I see store closing, and I'd seen she'd been doing some rock bottom sales and that kind of thing. And I walk in and talk to her and I'm like, you're closing the store? What's going on? Or is it not making money? I see people, tons of people, it's really popular, it's well known. And I ask her, just why she's selling. She's like, oh no, we're making really great money. Or I asked her why she, is closing, and she's like, we're making really great money. Just want to retire. It's time for me to retire. And so, I'm going to close. And I'm like, well, why didn't you sell it? And this is somebody who knew that I bought the business next door. And she really turned to me. She's like, I mean, people who buys businesses, like, who's going to want to buy my business? Nobody's going to want to buy my business. And I'm like, how could you know that I bought the business next door? Why wouldn't you at least start that conversation? And so you've got that kind of mentality. Here's somebody, they owned a business, they ran it, they took the money and put some of it in a retirement. They've had savings. This is their thing. And I literally could have obviously got that for zero.
Yeah, no, that's really interesting, right? And a lot of people aren't looking to sell or even know that you can sell a business, because you can sell houses because they're sold all the time, back and forth from investor to investor. You can sell stocks as well and other types of assets, but people don't necessarily think of buying and selling businesses, right?
Exactly.
So how do you go about finding those individuals who may want to sell, but may not know they want to sell? You know what I mean?
Yeah. And that's a lot of the issue. The issue is education, and it's the same thing that we're doing here. The same way that when you do a search on getting into business or making money, this isn't a topic that is talked about. It's the same thing for sellers. So 99% of the information is all about starting a business from scratch, and every podcast and blog and book and everything is all about starting a business from scratch. So the same way that puts the people that are trying to create income at a disadvantage, it also puts sellers at a disadvantage. People aren't making that a big enough a part of the conversation so that people plan on building a business that is sellable, which is one of the issues. And one of the reasons that we get such a huge discount is that most people aren't building a business that's easily sold. So we've got several paths. The best thing is outreach. So as much as I blame her for not contacting me, the lady who just shut the business down instead of selling it, it's my fault, because I was the person that should have been in that whole complex, like, hey, if you want to sell ever, not just expecting them to come to me, but if you want to sell, I buy businesses. And that's a big part of what we do is, with our program, we help build the person's profile so that they have a database of potential sellers. The one thing we know is that it's every company. Every company is either going to go out of business, they're going to sell, or they're going to pass it down to somebody in the family. There's only three things that can happen. So we know that a third of every company everywhere, it's gonna some of those are going to fall into our category. So we just want every company to know that, hey, we're in this business, we're interested in buying companies, and more than buying things that are on market, you are being advertised for sale. The best deals for anything are going to be off-market deals. So, if somebody has a Rolls Royce that they're trying to get rid of for $25,000, they don't need to advertise it. If somebody's selling a business, they're going to sell at a 1 multiple or lower. They don't need to advertise it. So we want to start that conversation with them directly and be able to build that relationship over time and educating them. And also, I want to buy businesses at a premium. I'm happy. I mean, you're talking about buying something at 3 multiple. I would rather buy a company that's been built really well and is an asset that we're going to be able to start leveraging to grow some of our other assets, as opposed to just fixing things within the business. I'll pay a higher multiple for that all day long. But the easiest way to find these businesses is just to start those conversations. Now, the great thing today is that it's easier to start those conversations because you can reach out to people on LinkedIn, you can connect with people on Facebook, Instagram. All of those are you can do in a more massive way. But you think about this, even something as simple as going to networking events, Lawrence. You think about the last time you were at a networking event and met somebody and they say, hey, I'm in small cap mergers and acquisitions. I buy businesses. If you know anybody who wants to sell a business, let me know. The powerful thing there is that nobody else is doing it. And so you become the permanent person. I call it psychic RAM. You take that spot in that person's mind where when they have a conversation, and I've had people send me deals after meeting them 3, 4, 5 years later, but you're the only person when somebody's like, man, I'm thinking about selling this business. Like, oh, I met a guy. It was 5 years ago. He buys companies. When you think about that in regards to anything else, you think about being I'm a real estate investor. I invest in the market, or, I'm an entrepreneur. You think about all those things, you're just in the humdrum of all the rest of the cycle around. But just going to networking events and setting yourself apart by being somebody that buys businesses is one of the most powerful ways to generate some serious deal flow.
Love it. Love it. We're going to get into, I want to know about, what's your thought process in terms of acquiring a company or passing on the company, just general in terms of that. And also I want to know what happens once you buy the business. How do you go about actually adding the value? But before we do, I'm here with Ace Chapman. He's in small capital, so small cap, private equity. He buys and sells businesses. And we're having a great conversation today. If you like this video, please press the thumbs up button on YouTube, share this video as well, and also please subscribe to our channel and visit theblackbusinessschool.com. Actually, let's talk before I know we're kind of going out of order, but I really want to know before we run out of time in terms of how you go about adding the value to the company once you purchase it, right? Because that's not necessarily an easy thing, because I think the upside of a business that you buy is you already have something that's generating cash, generating revenue. But the downside is you are tied to the mistakes and the decisions that someone may not have done right all along in the business as well. So can you talk about just the process of the value adding, or I guess the value adding process, and how you approach that?
Yeah. So one of the things that we do that is anybody can do, it doesn't take being a rocket science or a scientist or anything like that, is starting to create SOPs around the business. Our goal is we want to have a system that when we sell the business, that person is able to manage the company in a way that continues the growth without them having to come up with ideas or figure things out on a daily basis. We've got everything mapped out. What I like to do when I'm selling a business, just to give a sense of what this means. So, SOP is standard operating procedures. It's mapping out all of the areas of the business and the systems that work around those areas. So when I'm sitting down with a buyer of a business that I'm selling, and you can imagine this, Lawrence, if you're a buyer, especially most people that are buying businesses aren't people that are serial buyers like me. Most of them are buying a business for the first time, and it's going to be a business that they just run. They don't, buy a lot of companies. So they're sitting there and they've got concerns. They're worried. Is this thing going to work? Is it going to totally disappear? Am I able to do this? Those kind of things. And I want to sit down across the table from that person and just ask them, hey, what are your concerns? I know you got to have concerns. And they might say, well, I'm worried that the manager Melissa, I feel like she's amazing. Things are going really well, but if she leaves, I don't think I could do her job. I think, and I don't think I can, find anybody. I don't know what to do. I wouldn't know what to do. And that seems like a really risky point. And I can bring out my SOP folder and go to that section, go to where it says employees and go down to manager and show him, all right, when the manager leaves, here's our process. We first put an ad here. Here's exactly the wording that we put in the ad. Here are the things that as resumes come in, you want to filter out and you want to keep. These type of people you want to interview, and in that first interview, here are the list of the questions that you're going to ask. After that, you'll do an in-person interview, and here are the characteristics that you want to look for. During the interim, while you're going through this process and she's not there, here are the 2 employees that are trained to take on those duties in an interim period until you get that person that's going to replace her. And then you say, all right, what else are your concerns? Like, well, I don't know anything about marketing. I'm coming from engineering. I've saved up a little bit of cash, but I don't know how to market a business. And then we can turn over to the marketing processes. And we go down and we show, all right, here are the things that are working right now. Here are the contacts of the people at those firms that we advertise through. Here are the things that we've tried in the past that didn't work. So just so you don't either waste time or you can do a little bit of a tweak and improve those. And then here are the projects that we had coming up for the next 60, 90 days to help take this thing to another level that we would recommend you trying to see if they work and testing and doing some A/B testing through those things. Now, the interesting thing with all of those, everything I just said, you've already done the work. If you're running a business like that, you put the ad in. You've asked those questions on the phone interview. You decided what characteristics you wanted, and you hired that Melissa. No extra work had to be done except for documenting. And then you look at the amount of value that creates in the business. Now, obviously, from that scenario, you can see why that person would want to buy the business and feel a lot more comfortable. It's also one of the reasons when I'm sitting across from a person and they tell me I'm the first business that they're looking at, I don't want to have that conversation. I want them to go and talk to some of these other sellers where when they ask for the financials, they bring out a big tub, just a bunch of receipts and madness. They're just like, oh, well, I think, there may be a profit and loss in here and that kind of thing. And, you ask them about HR, what are the processes? Like, oh, well, this one time, we used this, another time we used that. And, this worked sometimes, that one doesn't work that much. I want them to go through 5 of those, and then I want to sit down with them. But when you look at the value of that, what you have is a franchise-like system. And you look at franchise itself, that's all they give you. They give you some training and then they give you some SOPs. And people will pay $50,000, $100,000 just for that. They'll pay, $500,000 to get those SOPs and then have to spend the rest of that money to hopefully turn it into making some money. So when you can have a franchise-like system, and instead of that person having to go out and do the work of starting it from scratch and then praying that it makes money, you can give them the franchise-like system, and the day one they walk in, they're putting money into their bank. That is a very powerful thing to create a premium. And it's something, like you said, like most people are thinking when you ask that question, how am I going to grow the business? Most people think, oh, you got to go in the business. You got to do something in that business. And what we try to do is work on the business to create value. Another example of that on the internet side is I don't like spending money on marketing. What we do is we want to find a business that's making money. And we want to buy that business that's making money and has our audience. So it could be a blog. And, we just did this on a business that is a blog. It's making, about $300,000 a year and, selling at a 3 multiple. Well, we have a pillow business. And this blog is all about mattresses and pillows. So I could go to Facebook and I could pay Facebook $50,000 a month to advertise and reach those same people. Or I could pay for something that's going to pay me $30,000 a month to have access to those exact same people. And that's the transition in thinking. When I talk about thinking like a deal maker, you're not getting into business. You don't want to be an operator. I think that one of the mistakes that a lot of people are making is that they are in an operator mode, and the returns, the ROI on being an operator are just really low. You can make a pretty good living. The ROI on thinking like a deal maker is unlimited because it's easy to scale those kinds of things. So we want to find those deals. Another example, we bought a hotel business called OpenRooms.com for any folks that are looking at hotels. It's online hotel business. And then, we basically are in the process right now buying an airfare business. And so we've got 1 million emails in Open Rooms. The airfare business has about 600,000. That allows us to do cross promotion. It gives us access to those 600,000 people. And now we get paid every single month to have access to those 600,000 people, instead of us trying to go and figure out, let's spend money and hope that we get an ROI. It's one of those things as an entrepreneur that puts a lot of the odds against you. It's when you look at Wall Street and the amount of cash that's generated there. They're not out there. It's all, generated from companies, but they're not the people that are trying to figure out, let me do some split testing, some A/B testing, and come up with hopefully an ad that works. The copy makes sense. The targeting is right. I don't have time to figure out all that, man. I need to get paid to get access to the people that I want to sell to.
I love it. That was, the best answer I could have hoped for in this interview when talking about adding value to a company that you have purchased. So we're out of time today. So we'll bring you back on to talk more about how you go about thinking about, what to buy and what not to buy. I think the audience really loved what you had to talk, what you talked about today. Thanks for joining us. So, if someone wants to find out more about you, if someone wants to buy a business from you or sell a business or learn the process of doing so, how can they get in touch with you?
So I've got a lot of free information that digs a little bit deeper than what we had time to get to today, but you can go to the Ace Chapman YouTube channel just to learn more. If you're interested in doing deals, feel free to reach out to me directly. It's ace@acechapman.com and check out the website to learn how we work with clients, which is acechapman.com. And I'm on Instagram as well, and it's ace.chapman.
Wonderful. So if you like this interview today, please go ahead and press the thumbs up button on YouTube. Share this video with your friends, colleagues, and family members if they want to know about buying or selling a business, even buying and selling a business as a family, right? Because we always talk about our Black Core of 3. We must educate our own children. We must create strong businesses, and we must support the businesses that we create. So acquisition of other businesses is really the creation of businesses within the Black community as well. It could be, a good source of wealth for you and your family for generations to come. So think about that. Also, please head over to the Black Business School, theblackbusinessschool.com to learn more about starting a business. If you want to learn more about real estate investing or stock investing, that's a good place to do so as well. We don't just teach you how to climb the corporate ladder, we teach you how to build your own. So if that's something that you're interested in, please head over to theblackbusinessschool.com and take some courses over there about Black wealth creation. So I would like to thank our guest, Ace Chapman, one more time. And on behalf of Ace, I am Lawrence Watkins, founder and CEO of Great Black Speakers and president and chief operating officer of the Black Business School. Everyone take care, be blessed, and have a great day. Bye-bye.